I saw Green Lantern yesterday. Was wonderful. My question for you is, Lara, Kilowog, Mongo, Orissa, we got to see a lot of different lanterns and get their backstory. What made you choose those lanterns?
God, I don't even know. It's a blur at this point. It was a collaborative process with myself and Alan Burnett and the folks at Home Video and Geoff Johns, who consulted with us on this, who's like the big Green Lantern guru these days. I'm not exactly sure how we picked these specific, individual characters. I mean, the Mogo one was obvious because that's like a really famous story in the comics, and it's kind of a real fun Shaggy Dog story in its own right. The other characters, I think, focusing on the very first Lantern, I think that's kind of an obvious choice. It's like well, yeah, like who wouldn't want to find out about the first Green Lantern? And Arisha is just an interesting character. We definitely wanted to have a rookie type character who wasn't Hal. But yeah, other than that, I don't know.
Were there any characters that got kind of like left in the scrap pile that were maybe going to have a story?
Not so much. Not that I know of. No. Mm-mm.
Are these the characters that are going to be focused on in the upcoming animated series?
Some of them. Kilowog, who has a spotlight story in this movie, he plays a huge part in the animated series, in the CG series upcoming this fall. He and Hal kind of have a Danny Glover, Mel Gibson kind of a relationship, kind of a Lethal Weapon kind of relationship. Yeah, he's a great character.
That's great. Another question I had was, what was the decision behind having different animators and different writers for each story?
Well, actually, we didn't have different animators this time. We did have different writers and different directors, but the overall visual style of the movie is a little bit more consistent than what we did with Batman Gotham Knights. Basically, just I love Gotham Knights, and that was the thing that was really exciting to me about it, was being able to see 6 radically different visual interpretations of Batman, but it was a nightmare to coordinate. It was really, really difficult. So this time we wanted to go at least with a common visual framework for the entire thing.
I'm here with Alan. He is one of the writers on Green Lantern Emerald Knights. Which section did you write?
I wrote the bookends, the beginning and the end, and the interconnecting material between all the stories. There's about half a dozen stories in there. And I wrote it with a guy named Todd Casey, who is a staff writer at Warner Brothers. And all the other, and I just coordinated getting all the other scripts in. I supervise the scripts on all the DTVs at Warner Brothers right now. So it sort of was logical that it fell to me to do the interconnecting material.
You must be really busy.
It was busy, and it was, I was dealing with writers in New York and writers in Los Angeles and writers in Europe, well, Dave Gibbon, and so it was putting it together was quite a puzzle.
I bet. So all the parts that are happening, like with Orissa, those are the parts you wrote, or mostly?
Yeah, the parts with Orissa and the attack of the last attack, which they did quite well, because it's not. When you see this, things are happening on a gigantic planetary scale, and it's tough to bring that off. And I thought that the artists and animators did a beautiful job on that.
What made you choose Orissa to be the rookie voice that we follow?
We just like her, and I think Geoff Johns said use her, and we were happy to do so. We did something called Green Lantern First Flight a few years ago, and she was in the background, but she sort of popped out, and so we wanted to use her again. And though this is a different sort of story from First Flight, I'm not even sure that it all connects. It wasn't meant to, really. She worked well then, and she works really well in this. And the artists seem to know how to draw her. She's very sweet.
Yeah, she has a nice look. She looks very, very similar to the comics, I feel, and there was like an innocence captured about her.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And she just pops. So
I feel like this film was kind of like an introduction for a lot of people who aren't existing fans of Green Lantern or know the backstory. Did you have any say in picking which Green Lanterns were going to be focused on?
People have been asking me, how did this come together? And it came together first with the writers. I think we went to the writers that we wanted to use. We knew we wanted to use the Mogo story. And the others sort of just evolved. So that and it evolved nicely in that the characters that were chosen and picked, they started to fall into a sequence. And we start with the first lantern, we go to their training, then we go to their family life, and then we go to the Mogo story, and then we end up with the way the lanterns are now, almost taking us into the Blackest Night. And so there's a progression that worked out well, and it just fell into place.
It really did. I mean, we all watched it yesterday. I saw the screening from our company, and it was just, it had a nice flow, and each story kind of had its own independent feeling. And even though I was talking to Bruce and he was saying that the artists are all the same, I feel like that even the art had a slight variation. How important was that to you, coordinating all the writing for each story to have its own individual voice?
Well, I wanted to maintain the voice of the individual writers, There's always a massaging that you do so everything fits in, and page-wise and all that. But we went to these guys, so let's let them sing,
Hey Geekscapists, this is Heidi. I'm here with Geoff Johns, producer and writer on Green Lantern Emerald Nights. So we all got to screen the movie yesterday, and what I'm really interested in knowing, number one, is why did you pick the Green Lanterns that you chose to focus on throughout the story?
Well, when Alan Burnett called me and talked to me about the project, he said, we're going to do all these different stories, and he asked me which characters I'd like to tackle. And so really it wasn't, we brainstormed a little bit about the characters, but really it was, I had a story to tell that I want to tell between Abin and Sinestro, and so that's why I picked them. Okay.
So then they were like the main focus, and then everybody else kind of filled in around?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had, when we asked Dave Gibbons what story he'd want to do, and he said Mogo, so really the writers picked the characters.
That's really nice. Was there any lanterns that stories didn't get told that maybe you wish would have?
Yeah, there's so many I could go on and on. There's a lot of characters I love. There's Morrow, the Crypt Keeper. There's Tomar-Ray. It'd be nice to see his origin. Vaz, who's this big, Chewbacca meets, Kilowog, this huge hulking guy who's the warden of the science cells. He's a really cool character. I would have liked to see his story told, but maybe we'll do a sequel.
Do you think they'll get a little more play in the animated series that's coming up?
A lot of different ones get play in the animated series, yeah. I've read the first 25 scripts already. It's really good, yeah.
The movie seemed to focus a lot on the constructs, and what I was wondering is there any construct that you yourself would like to be able to create, like your number one thing?
A plane, F-35. Yeah, absolutely. I think about that all the time. If only I could create a plane and fly away.
It's fun. I think that's what really stimulates everybody about Green Lantern, and why it keeps the fans reading, is using your imagination and thinking what you would do with it. I love the sequence with Lara and all the weapons. Yeah. That was amazingly animated. So
Eddie Berganza told me he researched all these weapons in order to write that scene, which I thought was really cool. But imagination is why this thing works, I think, because you see all these different characters and you want to know, well, what's their story? What constructs are they going to make? What's their planet like? So it's not just about what you would make with the ring, but about what all these characters are about. So it's pretty cool.
That's very cool. I think that's where you get their individual voice. Yeah. Last question, Atroctus. Atrocitus. Yeah. I don't know. That's what we were just talking about, actually. We think you need to release some sort of dictionary of how you say characters' names, or online you could click on it and someone would say it for you.
We've actually, it's funny is that doing all this Green Lantern stuff, that actually came up as a bit, people are is it Tomar-Ray or Tomar-Ri, or is it Salak or Salak? Is so there's all these, everybody's a little confused about.
The guy in the Green Lantern panel yesterday, what was it about Saddam? Is it Sodam or So Damn Good?
Yeah, exactly. So you never know, and everyone has their own interpretation, but you don't know until you're done.
So how do you pronounce it?
Atrocitus.
Atrocitus.
Yes.
Okay, he was a little smaller than we're used to seeing him. How do you feel about that?
When he gets the red ring, he'll be bigger.
That's what I figured. Yeah. Cool, thank you so much.